It's the Headbangers Ball New Year's Day special with The Cult, and we just got back from Sweet Soul Sister, taken from 1989's Sonic Temple album. Of course, many, many great songs on that record, and I think that actually leads us nicely onto my next point of inquisition here, because in the past you guys definitely felt a greater affinity with the scene in America, and of course you've worked with American producers, you've got an American drummer, and also had Matt Sorum, who obviously went on to Guns N' Roses. Why did you have more in common with US rock culture, and do you still feel the same way?
See, for me, it's not so much of a strange thing because I spent 5 years in Canada, so I really grew up with some North American influences, which is something that a lot of people tend to forget. I mean, I did spend a very influential period of my life in that society, so it's not that alien to me. So being in America or Canada is really not that strange for me. I'm very familiar with it. But I think that also the history of music, I mean, the music comes from European folk music and blues music from the United States. So there's a lot of roots from the United States. I just think that now that, in the modern age where everything's so close, it's all pretty much interrelated, really. There are cultural differences in some of the bands, like a lot of the new bands coming out of England now, the more sort of like pop-oriented bands like Oasis or Blur, or, they're very, very English, very definitively English, where I think a lot more of the hard rock bands tend to have a lot more of an American influence.
But do you feel at the time, Billy, that, when you were going through that very decadent and hedonistic period in the Cult, do you think that that's why America had such an appeal to you, because it was kind of because of the culture there and the audiences there?
Well, no, it wasn't so much that. I mean, in terms of hedonism, that still kind of goes on, really. It wasn't like a little period we went through and then went out of. It's kind of more of a thing that it's like a lifestyle thing. I mean, that's just the way, that's the way I behave, badly most of the time.
Well, I'd like to touch on one specific track on the album now, Sacred Life, which I think has been well documented, and if you listen to the album, it mentions a lot of people who died young, I suppose you say. There's obviously a very personal track to you, Ian. How difficult was it to admit to yourself that you kind of could have been next?
See, now, it's kind of a sad circumstance. My father was dying at the time when I was extremely out on a limb, and had he not been sick, I probably wouldn't have taken inventory of my own life. So I lost my father, but I gained myself. And it was really strange. But I mean, I wasn't really able to write about it at the time because it was just so emotional. I was so wrapped up in the emotional thing. I didn't really see it. I mean, I was writing about it in a kind of an abstract way, but I wanted to express it so much more directly. And recently, it's just been really, I've just been able to, I'm a lot more open. I mean, I'm not that, I think it's a lot to do with the criticism, because I do react to criticism of the band and to our writing, because I think that, we're very sincere about what we do, so when we extend that very sincerely and people sort of shoot it down in flames, it does hurt sometimes. But now we've got to a point in our lives where we're a lot more comfortable with who we are, and if, we're going to receive criticism, then I accept that as part of what we do. But that's fine, but I think that, we're a band that's going to be around for a long time, This is our life, this is our expression, it's a lifestyle, and it's been something I think we've all been passionately involved in since we could probably, since we first heard music when we were very young. And it's certainly something I can imagine myself doing when I'm however old I am, Whether or not it's commercially successful is for people to, for the public to make their minds up about whether they, identify with what we're doing, but I think the only thing we can really do is just be true to ourselves and make our music and be consistent in that, which is the joy of what we're doing right now, because I think we're extremely consistent in every single aspect,
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And as we said, the song Sacred Life mentions Kurt Cobain by name, and of course 94, I think the biggest event in the music, kind of the biggest thing we're going to remember about that is Kurt Cobain's suicide, and everybody can remember where they were when they heard that Elvis had died or when JFK had been shot. Can you remember where you were when you heard that Kurt had committed suicide?
We were actually in the studio in Vancouver recording.
So it's pretty traumatic.
Well, it's just sort of down the road. So, it was a little strange.
But, I mean, what was the vibe when you heard that? I mean, you must have all been really, really shocked.
Yeah, I think it was just sort of like, you know, no one actually knew what had happened. Really, it made it a little bit weird.
Okay, well, we're going to actually show you the events leading up to Kurt Cobain's suicide right now, and also how it did affect everybody in the music world. So we're going to have a look at that little report right now, and then we'll be back to talk to the cult some more right after we have a look at Kurt Cobain and the events leading up to his death. So there you go, that was a look back at the events leading up to Kurt Cobain's suicide last year. We're continuing our New Year's special with The Cult, and we're going into their brand new video. The track is called Star, and just going into the video, Ian, this is one of two or three songs on the album that express your admiration for strong female characters, which I'm all in favour of.
Definitely time to worship women again. I think women have gone from victims. In the 80s, always seemed like, you know, like one of the big things in the film Spinal Tap. Although comic really sort of illustrated where a lot of women were at the end of a leash, or it appeared to be that way, and I think women have really broken through. I think there's a lot more progressive female bands out there right now, and I really admire Courtney Love. I'm a really big fan of Hole, and I like things like Luscious Jackson, Royal Trucks, and, you know, L7, Babes in Toyland. I've always loved Patti Smith. So, but I think it's in a time where, you know, there's a lot of negativity in the world, and so it's like a time where we really need to reaffirm the life force, and, you know, women have the power of giving birth, and I think that's probably why they're at the forefront right now, just to sort of show the tribe that everything's okay, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that's the truth.
Definitely, and of course in the late 80s, it was a very sexist time, particularly in rock music, with, you know, women.
Commercial. You know, it's sold. To denigrate women sold. It's ridiculous. It's so ludicrous. You would think any of those boys in those bands didn't have a mother.
That's right.
You know.
So this video is definitely, what's the word, celebrating female. I like the sound of that, and the video was shot on location in New York City, and we're going to go into it right now. A very stylish video indeed. This is The Cult with the second single from the self-titled album, Star. With the Headbangers Ball New Year's special with The Cult. I hope you're enjoying the conversation. I certainly am, and as you can see, I've got Ian and Billy here now, and we'll talk a little bit more about everything to do with the new album. And I think if anybody that listens to the album and also reads interviews and so on, there's a lot of point has been made that this album goes back to the Love album in musical style. And I think also from what you've said, it also sort of has the same enthusiasm that a debut album might showcase. So what advice would you give to young bands about not getting caught up in show business and losing sight of the reasons that you got into music in the first place?
I think it's a case of just generally, whatever you feel generally good about is what you should go with. You know, instead of like maybe looking for outside influences, what you really feel in your gut is right for you, then that's what you should be doing. Because that's the essence of yourself, so.
Kind of like watch out for that second album. The first one's easy. Most bands, you know, most bands make a good first album, and it's the second album when you're going to kind of write it on the road, and everybody suddenly has expectations and preconceived ideas of all the things that you are or what they perceive you to be. And that's what's dangerous.
The thing that's been said is that, you know, like your first album takes you maybe 23, 24 years to make. Your second album, you've got like maybe about 8 months to put that together.
And also, I think Eddie Vedder made a good point that there's no training for you how to cope with success, if indeed success does come the way of a young band. There's nothing to prepare you for it, is there?
No. Well,
I believe the Boys Brigade has issued a pamphlet now.
It's tough. You go through it on your own. You really do. It doesn't matter what anybody says. You can sit down with people and talk about what you're experiencing, but at the end of the day, it's you against, you know.
You have to learn how to deal with it yourself. And having said that, The Cult, I don't think, could have made the album that you've made this time without having gone through all that.
Definitely, you have to experience it. I'm really glad we've experienced a lot of things that we have experienced, because it's made it a lot more, it's made it a lot stronger, solid, and it's really reinforced. I mean, what I'm really happy about is the fact that the quality of what we're doing right now in terms of the songwriting, the craft of it, it's really becoming very, very advanced, and that's really exciting. I mean, I guess we're in our prime right now. And whether or not it registers commercially, I think as writers, as musicians, it's our most prolific time and most focused time. It's very exciting.
Great. So how do you relate to your old albums? I mean, they seem to me that they're probably very autobiographical of those eras in your career and your lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been often quoted as saying they just represent, periods of time that we're in. They're just fairly honest, naive, at times, representations of where we're at. We're not the most calculating of groups, so we just tend to, we much more kind of follow our emotions and our instincts rather than locking ourselves away and, coming up with a strategy, which is like a lot of bands do that, and it's just not really our thing. So we kind of just, if we feel good about something, we generally do it, and that's been how we've done things for the last 10 years.
Okay, well, we'll be talking to the guys some more, but we have to have another commercial break right now. But stick around. We've got more Cult videos on the way and more talk about the album. So stay tuned as the Headbangersball New Year's Cult special continues. More from Ian and Billy right after these messages. I'll see you there.
Gonna get to the heart of soul. Yeah.
Was the debut video from Demolition 23, the band founded by Michael Monroe and also featuring Sammy Yaffa and Nasty Suicide, of course, all three guys formerly of Hanoi Rocks. Great to see them back together in fine form, even though they said they're nothing's all right. So we're still talking to the Cult. It's our New Year's special. Well done for staying up so late on New Year's Day. If you saw in the New Year last night, I've got Billy and Ian with me, joining me here in Milton Keynes, the centre of the universe. And we talked a little bit about the turmoils of the band in the past, and it seemed that, to me, that kind of Ceremony was kind of a time of reckoning for you. Was there ever a thought that the band might split up at the time of that album?
I think there definitely things were very fragile in that period, but the thing about Ceremony was we knew we'd evolved, I think. I mean, we basically started out in clubs, bars, and we'd evolved to this pinnacle. We were selling millions of records and playing, selling out arenas around the world. And I think we'd achieved everything we could imagine we could ever achieve, certainly commercially. And I just think it was just really time to readdress everything. So it was kind of like a period where instead of like maybe moving forward, we moved sideways. But I think it was really important. We were exhausted. And I think a lot of the songs on Ceremony are really good songs. The production itself was, it wasn't what we dreamed for, but some of the songs, I really like, Earth Mother and Indian Woman and Wonderland, the songs that I'll always like. But it was very necessary. I mean, you can't always, being that consistent is really, really, really tough. Plus we kind of had the crap kicked out of us with two members leaving the band, with Jamie and Matt going both at the same time, And there was a lot of sort of behind the scenes stuff, not necessarily with myself and Billy, but like in my personal life, there was a lot of drama and crisis going on. So I think it was really a time of a sort of a forced break for us. But we just we took stock of everything and
got your house in order with management and so on.
Yeah, that's right. Went out and found new management and everything. So, and there was also a big shift in music at that point. Hard rock music. There was a lot of very cartoony hard rock music around that sort of fell by the wayside. And we weren't prepared to get flushed down the toilet with everybody else, so we just sort of jumped out of the way. And I think really one of the most important things, again, was working towards forming a full band, So that a lot of the roots of this record and seeds of that are in that period of time.
Good. I mean, talking of Ceremony, and one of my favourite tracks on that album is Heart of Soul. There's so much feeling and so much emotion comes across in that song, and I think that can be said a lot also of the new record that we're talking about. Do you think that everybody should be able to relate to at least one song on the album because there's so many different moods and emotions?
Yeah, the album's pretty diverse. It covers the spectrum, I think, emotionally. Musically, yeah, it's fairly diverse. There's probably not as many overtly out-and-out hard rock songs as we've done in the past, but personally, I just couldn't write any more stuff like that. I was pretty exhausted in that vein, and by the time we did Ceremony, for instance, I was beginning to feel, I mean, some of the stuff I did on that I really wasn't into. And I thought I'd pretty much reached a bit of a dead end, and I was kind of pushed into doing it, and I didn't feel comfortable with some of the stuff I played on it, so, you know, that was a bit of a drag.
I mean, do you think there's like one song on the album that just sums up the spirit of it?
Wow.
Oh, can we bring this gentleman in? Come on. Come on, you've made us all laugh, please. Come on, come on. We've got Danzig on the show for you tonight. And there he is. Hello.
Evil Elvis.
So,
How's it going?
Yeah, we're fine. Now, can you go away, please? Because you're disrupting the proceedings. So we do. We don't know who that is, but anyway, we're going to go into some new talent on Headbangers Ball right now, a band to watch out for in '95, and this is Marilyn Manson. The band signed to Trent Reznor's new record label. They have an album out, debut album called Portrait of an American Family, which is all about the effect of television on young people growing up, and they're very interested in cult leaders and serial killers, and they're a very fine band, so we're going to have a look at their debut video. This is Marilyn Manson with Lunchbox.